Welcome to literary and jury charge practice. Let's get started with some literary material, and this is regarding test taking and some tips. Ready? Here we go. Each and every time you react negatively to a test or think a negative thought about an exam, you widen and strengthen the negative neural pathway related to testing, and your brain uses that neural pathway to send negative messages to the rest of your body. You tighten up, take a breath, and hold it. Your hands begin to sweat and shake, and you tell yourself you're not ready for this. In essence, you have created a self-fulfilling prophecy. To modify your outcome, you must first forge new pathways and create new testing habits. Let's take a 5-step approach. 1. Focus on the positive. I've written and spoken on the importance of ready, begin a number of times, but it's worth repeating. As you no doubt are aware, every NCRA certification exam starts with that phrase. So let's begin to think positively about that phrase. When you are practicing, repeat something positive after those words. Something like, I rock, or I'm ready, or let's begin. Whatever positive phrase or phrases you wish to use are entirely up to you, but keep it short and, of course, positive. Neural pathways in your brain can actually be altered by simply changing your verbal or mental response to a stimuli, such as the phrase ready, begin. Modify your response from a negative to a positive one. So very, very good idea. Focus on the positive. And let's see, some of the words that we had in that little section of this literary. We had self-fulfilling prophecy. So something you might want to practice, self-fulfilling prophecy. Neural, like N-E-U-R-L, neural pathways in your brain. Stimuli. We'll carry on with that one in a bit. For now, let's try some jury charge practice. And this jury charge, the subject is burden of proof. Ready? Here we go. The jury are instructed that if you find Myron Boone, the treasurer, had express authority to sign the notes and checks and effect the loan in question, or if you find that these acts were within the apparent scope of his authority or within the scope of the authority which he was accustomed to exercise without objection by these defendants, your verdict should be for the plaintiff. But if you find that borrowing this money in the way testified to and giving this paper was not within the authority expressly given to him or within the apparent scope of the authority which he was accustomed to exercise, then your verdict should be for the defendants. And if you should find that this money, borrowed or received for the paper in suit, was not for the use of the defendants, and the plaintiff knew or had good cause to know that fact, or if for any other reason the plaintiff did not in good faith trust the credit of the defendants, then your verdict should be for the defendants. You are instructed that to charge a corporation upon the act of an officer or agent, it must be shown directly or presumptively either that the act was performed while in the discharge of his ordinary duty in the usual course of business and was within the general scope and apparent sphere of such duty, or that it was expressly authorized, or that it was performed with the knowledge and implied assent of the directors of the corporation or its authorized officer, or was subsequently ratified by them. So let's take a look at some of the words that we had there. So we had treasurer, authority, expressly, accustomed, presumptively, sphere. We had general scope and apparent sphere of such duty. Sphere. All right, we'll get back to that jury charge, but now let's find out some more tips about taking tests. Ready? Here we go. Change your focus. Instead of asking yourself what happens if I don't pass this test, ask yourself what happens when I do pass this test. Remind yourself of all the positives associated with a new certification, finally getting that job as a new reporter, receiving an increase in pay for a real-time certification, appreciating the recognition associated with additional letters behind your name. There are many positives to attaining a new certification, so focus on those positives and not the negatives that may result if you do not pass the test. Change the if to a when. Not if I don't pass, but when I do pass. 3. Use your imagination. You can form new neural pathways not only by doing, but also by envisioning. So imagine yourself remaining cool, calm, and collected throughout your next certification exam or speed test. Begin every day by visualizing that event and even see yourself receiving the good news from NCRA. Imagine hanging your framed certificate on the wall and posting all about it on Facebook and LinkedIn. After all, your friends and colleagues want to share in your good news too. Use others' positive outcomes to boost your own. After all, if your friends can do it, so can you. Back to our jury charge practice. The subject, burden of proof. Ready? In this case, the burden of proof rests upon the defendant. He admits receiving the money, and his defense in this case is that he has repaid the same. If therefore follows that the defendant must prove by the preponderance of the evidence that he has paid the indebtedness which he once owed. If you find from the preponderance of the evidence that the defendant has repaid to the plaintiff the $977.80 which he received from the check in question, then your verdict will be for the defendant no cause of action. But if on this question you find the evidence evenly balanced or preponderating in plaintiff's favor, then you will find a verdict in the plaintiff's favor for the amount you find the defendant is owing on the amount of said check. Under the evidence in this case, it appears that either all of said check has been paid or no part of it has been paid. So your verdict will be either for the amount of $977.80 or a verdict of no cause of action. If you find the plaintiff is entitled to recover, then you will add interest at 5% from and after April 1, 1958. If you find the debt has been paid, then your verdict will be a verdict of no cause of action. Let's look at some of the words that we may want to practice. Preponderance of the evidence. Indebtedness. Preponderating. All right, let's get back to our literary on test taking. Ready? Create a plan. Decide how you will handle those negative thoughts when they enter your mind, and practice that plan. When preparing for a test, practice those negative thoughts and also practice your plan to eliminate them. If you hear "ready, begin," and your response is "I'm not ready, please don't begin," then you need to stop. Repeat your positive phrase and start your practice session again. Remember, there are 2 parts to certification exams: your skills and your confidence. A lack of confidence can outweigh and overwhelm your skills every time. If you don't believe you can pass the test, then you never will pass it, regardless of how good a writer you are. What do you do if you blow a test each time you say to yourself, "I'm getting this"? Then practice that. In each and every practice session, say that phrase to yourself and then push yourself to continue getting it. Ultimately, the new neural pathway will be just that. You continue to get it as opposed to falling apart when you tell yourself you're getting it. In other words, try to replicate your testing anxiety as much as possible in your practice sessions so you can create a new response to the negativity, form a new habit, and generate a new neural pathway. All right, that will conclude our literary and jury charge practice.